What is in your treasure chest?
In my treasure chest?
Yeah.
My actual treasure chest or a hypothetical treasure chest?
Do you have both?
No, actually, I don't have a treasure chest at all.
Okay, but if you had one, what would be in it?
That's a tough one because I'm not very much into material goods, having forsaken them for the most part throughout my adult life. I guess. So this can be anything, not even things I own now.
It's your personal treasure chest. It's up to you.
Okay, so I guess a Gretsch Roundup, a Martin 0018, a couple of nice bamboo fishing rods. I really have a lot of wants and needs.
Is there anything like not an object that would be in there?
Oh, now we're getting even more abstract. World peace? Can I have world peace in my treasure chest?
Yeah.
Youth? How about youth?
Okay. Anything else?
You got me. Happiness, the Hope Diamond. Does the Hope Diamond buy happiness? I don't know. I'd like to give it a shot though.
Isn't it bad luck that one? The diamond?
Well, I would sell it. I don't know. You think the bad luck would transfer to the money?
I don't know, but the selling of it might prove difficult, possibly.
Could be. Then I could just go straight to the money. It's my goddamn treasure chest. Doesn't have to be the Hope Diamond.
Well, how much?
For $1 million, they'll throw $10 million in there just for kicking around money.
Okay. Okay. Let's say you're on a fishing trip. What would be the ideal beachside, what lunch that you would make?
My beachside lunch?
Well, you just stop fishing, right? And then you're gonna cook the fish, but
I think I've actually had that lunch. It didn't involve fish though. It was on a Spring Creek in Montana, and it involved some game meat and good wine. Oh, actually, fishing in Spain, I had a lot of good lunches too. They always involve a lot of booze. But strangely enough, I don't eat fish.
Okay, can you explain that to me? Because aren't you by profession a fisherman?
Well, yes, but I'm not by profession a fisherman. I have been in the past, but I operate on the catch and release ethic, on the notion that, as expressed by the late great Lee Wolf, that a fish is too valuable to be caught only once, and because I think it tastes like crap.
Is that because you had too much of it?
No, actually, well, there is one experience I had like that, but no, ever since I was a kid, I just never liked fish. It never tastes good to me. It's a real problem for my wife, who grew up on the shore and was a great seafood lover. But the very first time I went to work in Alaska, I got left in the bush by myself for a couple of weeks. And I had to subsistence fish for king salmon. And so I ate king salmon for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
There's some feedback. That's a pretty interesting story. You want to expand on that at all?
Well, when I got to Rutgers in, I think, 1991, and I was starting to work on a PhD in English, and I had summers off, and I wasn't paying for school anymore. By the time you get to that point, they're paying you. And I'd worked a whole succession of crappy summer jobs to make money throughout my life. Everything from the fried dough bar at Canopy Lake Park, New England's fun capital, to short order cook that sort of thing. So I thought, well, now that I don't have to do a crappy job, what job would I like? And I thought I'd like to be a fishing guide. I had no credentials of any kind, so I sat down and I wrote 110 cover letters and put resumes with them and sent them out to every fishing operation I could find in the back of every magazine I could find. And this one very strange man from Alaska offered me a job, and I went up there sight unseen, which turned out to be kind of a disaster since he was both insane and bankrupt, which is kind of a noxious combination in a boss. And so turned out I was his only employee, and he sent me out fresh 2 days off the plane from New Jersey. He sent me out into the Alaska bush by myself for 2 weeks without a gun. So that was not an auspicious kickoff to my guiding career.
So he left you there? Like you didn't have clients or anything like that? Or...
Oh no, it was my job to quote unquote get the lodge ready for clients. Oh. These clients turned out to be purely fictional. And the lodge never opened, and I was there from May 20th to July 14th before I got my ass hauled out of there. And I never got paid either.
Oh my gosh, that's really heavy. But I guess you learned to fish during that time.
Well, it got me to Alaska, and once I got hauled out of there, I ended up getting another job at a much better, beautiful place where I worked for 3 years.
That's like, it's gonna take me like a day just to absorb that story. I can't believe it. Well, I'm glad you made it okay. It's like quite something.
There are tons of sub-stories within that story. I almost burned the place down. Then I was eventually joined by 2 other guys who were incredible characters. One of them was perhaps the dumbest human being I've ever met, and the other was a fanatical H. Ross Perot supporter.
Okay, wait. So these experiences fishing then led you to start this blog? Like how?
Well, no. Keep in mind, I was in graduate school at the time, so I was working on my doctorate and spending my summers as a fishing guide in Alaska, and then I spent one summer in Montana and guided a lot in Yellowstone National Park. And then I sort of got to that point in my studies where I got a dissertation fellowship. So they paid me to do nothing but write my dissertation. Instead, I watched television and learned how to play the guitar. So when it came time for me to actually produce some work, which I hadn't done, I figured it was time for me to bail on the whole PhD thing. And the only thing I knew how to do at that point was write and fish. So I drove through a bookstore and took down all the fishing magazines and sent them applications, and literally 2 weeks later I got hired as an editor at Outdoor Life magazine, which is one of the 3 major U.S. sporting magazines.
Do you think you're ever gonna like be hit by like a bolt of light and just immediately write down the PhD thesis that you know could have been written or whatever? Like, do you think it'll...
My mom.
What?
Have you been talking to my mom?
No, it just... You know how when something gets started, it's like... You know, like, does it feel weird to... that happened? Or, you know, like, is there any resolution there?
No, because the deeper I got into the PhD program, the less I actually wanted to be a professor.
Yeah.
My desire to be a professor was based on the guys who had taught me at Columbia, most of whom were considerably older. A lot of them had gotten their PhDs on the GI Bill and had come up in the 50s and the 60s when being a professor was a pretty good life. The whole academic mill nowadays is a lot more work for a lot less prestige and pay, and it involves jumping through a lot of hoops. I was kind of picturing myself, you know, teaching my classes and retiring to my cabin in the Adirondacks for long fall weekends catching fish, but it's pretty much a grind.
Yeah, that's my understanding from.
Yeah, by me.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Is it like out and about, or is it in a drawer?
Oh no, it's not very good. I wrote it with a friend of mine when we were just sort of kicking around ideas. We ended up writing a slasher movie instead.
Well, no, like do it. You know, just write it by yourself. I don't know. I don't know how.
Well, I think the fact of the matter is I'm a much better editor than I am writer, and I think they're very distinct skills. You know, when you look at, for instance, The Wasteland as Eliot wrote it and The Wasteland as Pound hacked away at it, they're unbelievably different poems. But the edited one is way better. So I see that as my main skill set, is taking other people's stuff and making it better. A fact that real life doesn't always make for good drama.
No, but it's
You know,
it.
you have to take it. It's very difficult to take your own life, which you know is this serial sequence of events, and then try to shape it into some meaningful arc that takes place over 90 minutes in a movie.
Or you could dispense with the meaningful arc and just describe, which might be like just as good or better, you know.
Yeah, but you want to sell this, don't you? I mean, isn't the whole point of writing it to sell it and make $1 jillion?
That's an American attitude, isn't it? You don't really think that, right?
That's the only reason I would write a screenplay.
Really? Oh.
I'm not a filmmaker either.
Yeah.
I have friends who are filmmakers, and you know, they'll devote thousands of hours, much like yourself, to putting together something that is a meaningful piece of art for them, not necessarily a commercial endeavor. But that's not who I am.
Yeah, it's a story of my life. Like, no.
I consider New York City to be for the young and the rich, and I'm neither. It was a great place to go to college. Ironically enough, Outdoor Life magazine, where I went to work, is at 2 Park Avenue, where there's no outdoor life of any kind. So, sitting in New York City and writing about the great outdoors was kind of a drag. But no, I mean, when I go back to the city, I still love a lot of stuff that I loved about it, but it's a different city now than it was then. I got to New York in 1984 when it was still coming out of the 1970s malaise and no one really wanted to go there. Now it's a little theme park-ish to me. And the damn subway's like 3 or 4 times more expensive than it was. What's that all about? Confusing Vermont with some other state, perhaps New Hampshire, my home state, or Maine. I mean, we have the only socialist representative in the United States Congress from Vermont, the great Bernie Sanders. No,
It's so funny, I'm on his website right now.
My wife is on his website right now.
Okay.
No, I love Vermont. It's great. I have a touch of the misanthrope about me. And so we live in a town of 400 people with 1 paved road. No schools, no stores, no traffic lights, no cops, nothing.
There must be like a bootlegger then, right?
Oh, not bootlegger, probably growing pot, more than likely.
Okay.
Every September, the black helicopters come over. It's still the number 1 cash crop in Vermont.
Oh, really? Yeah. It's
Yeah.
I don't know.
Faithful to it.
Um.
I like the color, I like the smell, I like the sound of the ice cubes in the glass when you swirl it around. It always freaked me out in college when kids would drink something crappy to get drunk. I like it.
Yeah.
The real impetus for any bartender not to serve someone is that person might go out and drive a car and kill somebody.
Yeah.
In New York City, it's not a big deal. I mean, there were bars famous in New York City for serving high school kids. And in fact, I walked by one of them a couple weeks ago and was surprised that it was still there. The Dublin House was the West Side high school bar. And of course, Dorian's Red Hand was the East Side bar, and that's the bar that Robert Chambers met Jennifer Levin, was that her name? And he killed her in the park. very famous socialite murder.
Wow.
No, I mean I do charity trips. I guided a couple last summer for a charity called Casting for Recovery, which uses fly fishing to help breast cancer survivors rehabilitate their musculature. Turns out that fly fishing is an excellent exercise for that. So I donated a trip for them, but no, I don't guide for money anymore. And I have two small kids. I don't get to fish as much as I normally would. That said, in the next month I'll be going to Florida and Montana, so for work. Those are work trips, but I will get to fish while I'm there. I was in 2000. I was in England at the World Fly Fishing Championships, and yes, they exist, the World Fly Fishing Championships, and there were a lot of people getting very serious about the whole thing, and this sort of wry, red-nosed English chap standing next to me said, "It's just poxy fishing," which I think it is. I don't think it's mystical. I like Norman MacLean, but I don't revere a river runs through it. I don't think there's too much mystical about fishing. I think it's about getting out and standing in a river and waving a stick. If you catch a fish, that's great. I mean, at this point, having guided as much as I've guided, I've caught all the fish I need to catch.